Nice chat and Daytrippers. Give for more.
Who's hosting?
Very special.
I'm hosting, am I?
Yeah.
I'm going to do the tweet.
Jesus, I better get it quick. Okay, good evening. Welcome along to the forum. I didn't know I was hosting tonight. Yeah, we're having a show on the four things. I see somebody's already said LFC Daytrippers, which is fair enough. That's because Ray Dicko Dickinson is never early, and the Ray Brady there decided to come on about 10:05. And ignored all WhatsApp abusive messages. So anyway, look, good evening. Welcome along. It's the four lads in the house. 4 topics to take you through the next, say, 60 to 85 minutes or so on this poxy international break time. In the pod tonight, we've got what have we got? We've got Andy Young, Ray Brady, and Ray Dicko Dickinson all the way down there. So because there's 2 Rays, we have to refer to. I was going to use Ray 1 and Ray 2, like as in Banana 1 and Banana 2, but we'll go with Dicko and Razor, or Dicko and Ray Brady, or whatever I come up with in the meantime. Andy's there. Andy is joined tonight by his son. Dara, say hello. Hey there. If anyone can find Dara's missing tooth, it'd be great. You can say, let them know. It is what it is. Right, look.
The COVID tooth fairies are up at about €50 a pop now, aren't they?
The COVID tooth fairies, are they?
Yeah.
This one is,
yeah. No, there's no payment. You can't use cash. It's COVID. You can't use cash. It's cash is king. You have to give them. It's a Revolut card, and then they get an account. The 2 fairies have gone very high tech these days in terms of tap and go. Right, listen to me. Good evening. Welcome along to the forum. It is, of course, ourselves. We're stuck on an international break. I see Mo Salah was not socially distancing from a load of Egyptian fans who invaded the pitch, and he was terrified for his life earlier on. So tonight we decided to have a look at a couple of things. The topics are probably interlinked, but they range across all the various things that we're going through in this current malaise of restrictions, not restrictions. I know in England they're saying that it's great part of the big easing of the lockdown where they're able to go outside and do some activities. And in Ireland they're calling it an extension of a lockdown where we can go outside and do the exact same activities in England. So with that, Andy, hello, Andy, this is Phil calling. Andy.
Hello.
Yeah, well done, Andy. It's great to have you. Thanks for rejoining us there. Anyway, Andy, it's your topics up first. Go on. What is it going to be?
What was it again?
You tell me. You had things about quotes from Bob Shankly.
Yeah. My topic just annoy you. Yeah. No, so look, the topic is who was right? Was it Bill Shankly or Jurgen Klopp? Bob Shankly. So Shankly was famously misquoted as saying that football is more important than life and death. Phil, I know you have the real story.
No, I thought is that the quote, or have we just made up a quote there, Andy?
No, he was misquoted as saying that. In actual fact, where it really came from was in an ITV interview afterwards, when he just said, somebody said to him one time that football's more important than life and death, and he said, I hate that attitude. It's more important than that. Yeah,
right.
Anyway, and then so Jurgen Klopp famously said that football is the most important thing of all the unimportant things.
Right.
So who was right? So that's the topic. What does football mean to you? What does Liverpool mean to you? How does football dominate? Does Liverpool dominate your life to the point that you prioritize it over other things? You know, some of us are more fanatical than others. Does it get in the way of your daily decisions? Do you prioritize it over work? You know, how do you get what I'm asking?
Well, you tell me, Andy. How important is football to your life? If you were to rank this, is it more important than life or death, or is it the most important of the unimportant things?
I would say that Klopp's quote is a modernized version of what Shankly meant back in the day. I think football at the moment is ridiculous and it's totally unimportant. It's I don't look forward to it anymore. Without fans, it's nothing. But when football's at its normal, the lengths we go to see games, to get away to games, how much it dominates your thoughts, your moods, like, you know, how a result can affect you, how you wake up the next morning, how it can affect your mood for the rest of the day. I know. There's no better feeling than waking up the next morning after a good result in the Champions League or whatever. But it's just the level that football and Liverpool, supporting Liverpool, can dominate your life. So look, I just thought it'd be an interesting topic to see what you thought.
It is, but I'm still trying. So when you're trying to weigh up that decision, Andy, in your head, right? So I put it to you like this, right? If you had a choice between going to your mate's wedding or watching the Champions League final, and there's no televisions at the Champions League, there's no televisions at the wedding, and there's no way you're going to see the game or know what the score is going to be, or you're even not going to know how the outturn of the match was for at least 2 days, right? So they are basically put into an information vacuum. What is it? Is it the wedding or is it the match?
Okay, so first of all, what sort of mate gets married when the Champions League final is on?
Well, I've been there, Andy.
I've been to a wedding when the FA Cup final was on. Chelsea. We lost during the Rodgers days, if I'm not wrong. And everybody had their phones out underneath the table, iPads or whatever.
At this wedding, you can't. This is that place in Leitrim, which is completely impervious to radar. And
is it Trev's Cap?
It is, yeah. You can't get there, right? So it's full of Trevs. They're all sitting around there talking to themselves, basically, because nobody's listening, as he keeps telling us all, right? So basically, that's what's going on. So you can't get any type of signal. You can't find out how the match went, right, for 2 days, right? You've literally no outside contact when it comes to football or sport, right? So your choice is: are you going to go to the wedding?
I think I would pull a sickie for the wedding.
So then you're answering your own question in terms of where you sit with this. Football is incredibly high up your list of priorities.
Absolutely. Yeah. And look, like, it's a topic we can have a bit of crack about, but it's mad. It is mad how something like a sport, like as Klopp calls it, the most important thing of all the unimportant things. And as Klopp, as Shanks alluded to back in the day, he talked about how he made sacrifices and everything that he had in life, all the good in his life came from the work he put into football. But what the downside of that is he had to make some very hard decisions that hurt his family and hurt relationships. So, you know, do we allow football, do we allow sport dominate our lives to the point that we're making sacrifices? And is that right?
Ray, Brady, I'll come to you first. Right? See, Ray, you're about to jump in there, Ray Dicko. But we come to Ray Brady first. Ray Brady, what side of the conundrum do you rest on? Do you place football and Liverpool above all else, or is it just a thing that goes on in the background of your life?
Yeah, I think Klopp's description is perfect. It'd be next down the list after family and really close friends. Yeah, everything's planned around it, from turning down overtime and work to not being on the road, driving somewhere while there's a match on, to trying to be off the next day after a big game, whether you're going to watch the TV, Sky Sports News over the course of a weekend, depending on the results. So it's massive, absolutely massive. And not to mention then the fact that WhatsApp that we're involved with takes up even more time, which is predominantly Liverpool. Bit of COVID, bit of, as you know yourself, Phil. Yeah, I'd say you're probably talking 90% of time away from family and close friends would be Liverpool related in some way. Okay. So you're up there with it's definitely verging on the more important than life itself. It's something that flows through your lifeblood. It's what gets you. Yeah, well, I mean, you know what? I'm always thinking, and I know you still slag me over, but like, I mean, I couldn't shake that fucking Gerrard slip for about fucking 2 years. Like I was having fucking nightmares over that. Honest to God, real fucking night, waking up in a sweat saying, no fucking way did that happen. The best player at our club in the last 10 years. There's no way. What sort of cunt of a God would do that to that man? And that he could be in some way a fall for us not win the league. I was,
that could be a YouTube brand there putting those two words together.
Sorry about that.
Well, can I just point out it's the same God that stopped John Barnes taking it into the corner in 1989.
Listen, I think about over that to easily.
Think about it, right? Everyone talks about a course in Anfield after Grobbler in 1990. It happened a long time before it. That ground is coursed. It's built on a burial ground of Native Americans who obviously were shipped over. That's literally what's happened there. Seriously. Ray Dicko, where you're even from Liverpool. I'm you're a Scouser, and you've managed to run away from the city. So where do you sit in this? Is football still as important to you? Does it still hold the central point of your weekend life, essentially, like when you got some free time?
Yeah, I mean, it does. I mean, there's no getting away from it. I mean, the missus automatically asks me on a Saturday morning, at what time is Liverpool playing over the weekend, because she knows that plans have to be kind of moved around or organised around that kick-off time, because we ain't going out at Sunday 2:00 if Liverpool are playing. Just back on the sort of the whole Champions League final and a wedding. I mean, that happened to me when we lost the final against Madrid. My cousin arranged to get married on Champions League day, as it turned out. Champions League final day, as it turned out. The wedding was in Mallorca, so it was a travel out to Spain for a few days. And I kind of all the way along kidded myself that the timing of the meal, would allow, an exit point to go and watch the game, or at least watch the vast majority of it. And the day just, it just became more and more obvious that the meal was going to start getting served just as the match was about to be kicked off. It was fucking ridiculous. So I spent the whole first half trying to put it out of my mind and trying to do the honourable thing for the family. Dicko,
can I ask you when? So you got the invite, and at what stage in between getting the invite and then realising Liverpool were on? Obviously the invites went out before you knew Liverpool were in the final.
Absolutely, yeah.
So was there a stage when you were saying, "Oh, here"?
Yeah, it was constantly coming up as we were progressing, and like my auntie and stuff, and saying I was lobbying for the TV to be in the same room as where the meal was being served, because I was saying, well, look, you're gonna have people, you're gonna have people leaving the meal mid-meal, you're gonna have people with phones at the table and all that sort of stuff. But she was adamant no TV and all this, it wasn't going to turn it into like a sideshow or anything like that. But there was a TV a bit further away from where the actual kind of meal was being had. I managed to get up there. I basically managed to get up there with about 55 minutes gone. We were getting beat, and I managed to get up there and we equalised. So I had the joy of that, and then we went 2-1 down, and I seen the calamity of the. And the third goal, and when it went 3-1, I kind of admitted defeat to myself and took that back to the wedding. And I actually didn't even see the first Karius fuck up until the next day. I actually didn't understand the context of us losing that final. Was like 100% down to Karius basically until the next day when I allowed myself to look at some of the highlights, because I couldn't bring myself to watch it. So. I think that did really kind of ruin the week, that wedding, that weekend, and everything. So it's still high up there. All I would say about now is, I can't.
That's an unfortunate stoppage.
I know. The referee's blown the whistle and he's gone to VAR.
You really look like you were enjoying yourself there, Dicko.
I was just saying, I've made me peace with this season, and I've kind of half switched off. Really, the only thing I'm interested, the only thing that's going to affect my mood now is the Champions League, and I'm not overly concern with where we finish in the league this season. I'll almost allow us to take a season off, because it has actually gone down the list in priorities for me right now.
Yeah, but it's mad because we're having a bad season, but we're going through a goal. What you could be considered a golden era. The last few seasons we've had have been incredible, and right bang in a season where things have gone wrong. Okay, there's COVID and everything else, and football is just not really interesting anymore. But I could actually bring myself to going out shopping instead of watching Liverpool at the moment.
I have to say,
I couldn't have done that during the Hodgson days.
No.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, but I put it to you this way, though, Andy. Isn't that simply you wouldn't do it now on the Champions League night? You're gonna do it now in the league because we're not competing to win it now. And
that's interesting, right? That's probably where I'll fall on the other side of the fence. Like, football for me is just something at this point in my life, and it's not just Liverpool; it's just football in general. It's just something that, if I happen to be around when it's on, I'll watch it. If it's not, I'm not moving anything. I'm not changing anything in my life to make room to go watch a football match. Nothing. There's no football match at all at this point in time that I would put over doing anything else.
Previously, though, Phil, in your when you said to me after the Champions League final when we beat Spurs, you said, I'm back in. I'm buying back into football. I'm back in this love with this whole thing. What sort of sacrifices you made? I'm not talking about saying no to your missus because you're going shopping, but how far? When does it become acceptable? When does it become unhealthy? What you do to watch a game football?
I'll go the opposite way to you, right? So when I set up this podcast way back, right, I was deeply enthralled to watching Liverpool and dreaming of Liverpool winning the league and being competitive and watching everything they do, tracking the transfer market, listening to all the rumours, watching everything that's going on at Sky Sports, building all this type of stuff. And so I think I got so buried deep in Liverpool and football for so long that eventually you just give up. Your body just gives up to it, and it just becomes, you just step back from it all and you just say, it's a great irrelevance. It's designed to be treated essentially like a drug. You love winning, right? So you want to see more of it. But if you have, even losses are addictive because you have something to talk about. It's a conversational point that exists with your mates. It's something that you can sit around and talk about it. So at this moment in time, when I think about it, Andy, I can have the same conversations with the same group of lads that doesn't involve football and have as much crack talking about just things in general now at this phase of my life than football. Football brought us all together, but it isn't the thing that binds us anymore. Right, so there's so much other life experiences and things that are going on outside football, which has made football just something that's nice to do. And for me, in the current situation of the pandemic, it's not even to do with Liverpool's form this season; it's the pandemic itself. I literally have little to no interest in football as a product. I'm not even talking about Liverpool now. I'm just talking about football in general as a product because it's so irrelevant. It's not a good thing to watch. There's nothing enjoyable about it. And I know, Ray, you said I'm not going anywhere on a Champions League night to it, but to me it's the same thing. I turn on, it's an empty, soulless experiment that's going on at this moment in time, and it really brings home the idea. And I would have been one saying, fans in stadiums don't really make that much of a difference, until I saw it and I realized, no, it's dead. It's absolutely dead. The product as something to watch is dead. And I love when Andy asked me what has me back in, when I was back in based on the idea of the Spurs game, because the passion, you could feel the passion from both sets of fans coming through the camera and through the noise that we exhibited in that stadium that night. When we're on a run and Anfield is bopping, right? And I mean, when you think about the way that Anfield was from November on of last season, when it looked like we had a real chance of winning the league, and we went on that remarkable run, that it was unbelievable, because normally you don't get to feel that until the end of March, April time. You think of 13, 14, we weren't running away with the league back in the November, December. In 13, 14, it all got shoehorned into this amazing sensation that builds, and a crescendo that builds from February right the way through to May, right? And it's like you just feel that passion. It comes, you can watch it on the television, and that makes you shift things around. It makes you want to go, I'm not missing this. I'm not missing a heartbeat of this, because there's, at the moment, and I even found it just becomes soulless the way football is at the moment. And I think the more you go down this route of forcing sport into empty stadiums without people, the more you drive people ultimately away from the sports, and you remove that relevance and that importance to them in their lives. And look, for me, I think it's great. Like, Andy, you still love it, right? You still love it in terms of Ray B. You still love it, right? And what it is, and I would never discourage anyone from loving their passion. For me, it's not my passion anymore. It's not a passion.
I totally get that. In the current climate, it's not enjoyable at all, and I could live with missing a match. But when things are back to normal, I don't know. I've realised that I think I feed off the atmosphere more than what's happening on the pitch a lot of the time. Like, I don't look back on cup finals as my greatest memories of football. I think I look back more on those big nights where it got really noisy and really heated. Like Mohammed Farrow UK makes a really good point there. He doesn't feel like eating when we lose for a few hours. I'm totally the same. Like, it's just, if it drains you like so much when we're in, forget this current climate football, but what it does to your emotions and your mood and everything the next day. But on the flip side, what I can do for you, I could be going through something normal, a real life problem, and then I think of the Barcelona 4-0, and it'd be like hearing a tune, like a song that puts you in good mood. It's amazing what it can actually do for you in a positive way as well. But boy, God, like when it's bad, it's bad. I just hate waking up the next day after getting knocked out of Europe or after being beaten by the Manx, or when it's just mad. It is quite unhealthy when you think about it.
Can I ask?
I'll be honest. I thought it was a bit of a shock to me how much I missed the fans in the stadium, and I don't mean the atmosphere. Just that you thought that the game itself between two competitive sides might be enough to tickle you over. And last season, all you have to go on is the end of last season when the force came in and where we gonna do it, and we were just getting carried along with here comes the force Premier League. But now we have it from day one, and it's just amazing the difference between watching the game now without fans in the stadium.
Can I offer another bit with that drove the sort of stake into how dispassionate I've become from football? I think us reverting to being absolutely shite this season has been much harder to take than watching us being shite for 20 odd years. Right?
Yeah, cool.
Because
that's because we felt the distance between where we were to now was.
Well, I'd gotten to the stage where I just had got that sense of that 80s feeling where I wasn't worried about turning on a game to watch us play. I expected us to win, and if we lost, it would be a rarity, right? And we were winning the games we were expected to win, and that's been the way it's been with Klopp for 2 or 3 years. And I think that's also allowed me to mentally step away from having to rigorously follow the game and rigorously follow the matches and the form, because you sort of knew this team could turn out, and if they're not playing well, they still probably win, and you know what the outcome is going to be. And that's how I started watching games on replay as opposed to watching them live. But this has really been harder for me to take in terms of us reverting back to being absolutely shite this season, because it felt like you couldn't reverse our form that quickly. Even in my worst predictions, I thought we'd end up with 86, 87 points this season, and whoever gets over 90 wins the league, right? I couldn't see us ending up with maybe 65, 66 points this season in any sense, even losing the defenders we did. And that to me has been even a greater sort of draw away from even caring at this point. And when I mean caring, I know people will just say like, oh, we can't say you just don't care. But like, it's very hard to be emotionally invested in something that is just adding to more anxiety and frustration and not bringing joy in this current climate. And that to me is where I find myself even more emotionally removed. No fans, shit form. And then you just have the rest of the crap that's going on around you in the world. You just don't need it. You want to escape. Football is an escape. For me, sorry, that's the simplest way for me to put it. Football has always been an escape, and it's no longer an escape. And if you no longer have that escape, it's very hard to really care about setting aside a time and to escape from what you're living in, because it's part of the shit that you have to do on a daily basis, basically.
Yeah. I mean, one of the mad things about, you saying about losing that kind of fear of turning on the telly and seeing us lose or whatever, that had kind of gone. I mean, as sort of day trippers, I guess, as people who are going to travel back over to Liverpool in the future. I mean, we were privileged to be going over there for a period of a couple of years without really the fear. Like, we were so invincible. Like, you were almost like, I know you don't go over to games to guarantee a win sort of thing, but you were going over there with fairly realistic expectations that you were going to see a decent game, and that you weren't gonna come back off the end of a loss to West Brom or a loss to Stoke back in the day or whatever it might have been. That you're actually going to go over, watch a quality team with some absolute superstars probably tear shreds out of the opposition. And now when we go back, we're going to have lost that. We're going to have kind of moved a little bit away for that. Now hopefully it'll all come back, but there is that shame to what's happened, that we don't kind of necessarily get that anymore.
I'll never ever forget how hard it was coming home from a Liverpool game on the slow ferry when we were kids.
Yeah,
that drive back from Liverpool to Holyhead in a banger, onto the ferry, that was like all over the place. You were guaranteed to get sick, and the top of it all, Liverpool lost, or when we were good then as well, and we drew. It was so heartbreaking, and you hadn't even got a cabin to be in. You just were lying on the ground puking and that. Oh, for fuck's sake!
Do you remember they heard the rattle of the glasses from the bar or the cafe? That's all you could hear. Jesus Christ!
Yeah. At least the grown-ups could go and get a few points. We'd be left.
Yeah, as bad as the Holyhead ferry was, the other one was a nightmare as well. Andy, the 7-hour, the old school one.
I never got that as a kid.
Oh, it was vile.
Right, I want to take Andy's topic on, because it's a good opener, and it sort of leads into my topic, which is, in the current scenario, have you found yourselves being drawn to other sports, or do you see the same issues playing out across all the sport outside of the ones that seem to have fans, or countries that have fans back in those sports? From my point of view, like, as I've long been on here, I watch an awful lot of American football and American sports in general. And I found I watched an awful lot of the games where they'd let fans back into the stadiums across, particularly around the college season, where they were having 25,000 in the southern states in America. And that definitely didn't have any issues at all longer term in terms of COVID cases. And you look at, but then I look at stuff like German football, Spanish football, completely turned off to what's going on there. This is the first Cheltenham in a long time. I didn't bother even watching one of the races. No crowds there. There's just no point to it. And same could be said for rugby. I know Shane would be taking the piss now out of us in the WhatsApp group, but like I would have normally religiously watched the Six Nations and watched Leinster in the European Cup or in the Pro 14. Haven't bothered watching a single game. Again, no fans, no passion. It's just soulless. And I think also fake crowds has driven me mad. I will say one thing, lads, and I think when I was thinking about this topic, I think it came to a sudden realization that COVID has become a sport for me, right? So because it has all the tangibles, right? All the phraseology that they're using, game of two halves, that we're close to the end now. It's this last bit to get us over the top. You've got all these stats going on every day. There's cases, there's deaths. It's like there's all that type of stuff that's going on, and you can follow it almost like a sport. Now, I don't mean that in a bad way, but the way it's presented to us, the way sports broadcasting has permeated into mainstream news, so is that you follow stories like they are a game in some sort, because it gamifies what goes on, and it brings you closer to it. If you're into sport in any way, it's drawing you in all the time. You're looking at this going, oh, what's going to happen next? What's going to happen next? And you get that pull that's there. And I'm just wondering, from your point of view, have you found yourselves drawn to any other sports or other hobbies that wasn't there beforehand? Andy?
No, it wasn't there beforehand, but I've really enjoyed golf. Even like going back to last season's tour when there was no fans, like they're letting a limited amount of fans. There was some fans back at the Phoenix Open, the Waste Management, and I don't know whether you're familiar. The 16th par 3 has a big stadium thing. It's like no other golf hole in the world, but that place is normally people hanging from the rafters and the noise and it's the crack. But the limited amount of fans at that, but generally, like having no spectators on a golf course doesn't take away any enjoyment. In fact, it probably makes it a little bit better, especially on the US tour when people are shouting mashed potato and all sorts of stupid things. But I've really Yeah, I've really enjoyed sitting down to watch. That is a sport, and actually, yeah. So like it was kind of like a trophy to me when I got blocked by those. So it is a bit like a sport. Anytime I got blocked. But no, golf it hasn't really been impacted for me. Not being able to play golf is a killer, but as a spectator sport, I think it's pretty good. I'd way rather now sit down on a Thursday, especially with the Masters coming up, and watch the whole thing. I know there's going to be a limited amount of spectators because America's a lot different to here at the moment, but that to me it wouldn't bother me in the slightest. So that's one sport. Can't really think of anything else. I know the rugby fans that I know are GA fans. They're all the same. It's just not. I think the fans make those type of sports.
That's fair enough. Ray Brady.
Yeah, I wouldn't say I've taken up any extra interest in other sports at all. Most of them are suffering the exact same way. I'd be a boxing fan and maybe a bit of MMA as well, but all of them have suffered terribly by no fans even in there. Even to the extent where, the MMA in particular, I actually got a bit of a turn off it because there was a bit of sickening noise of some of the blows that you wouldn't normally hear. When they're in a full stadium, but I've given it a wide berth, Phil. It's like I said, it's actually been a shock to me just how important it is in regards everything. So you're getting noises pumped into stadium, so it's not actually the noise; it's a genuine feeling that you get from a real audience there. So it doesn't matter what sounds they're pumping in; it's still not doing it for us. Everyone's saying the same thing. It's just totally different. Yeah, it's just nothing else. Maybe me sea swimming. Would I count that as doing something different that I wasn't doing before?
I think it is. I think it's worth it. It was another bit that I was going to say is I think an awful lot of more people are partaking in doing an activity now than would have been beforehand. So like they can't the organised sport, because it's been cancelled, has led people more into individual activities, be it wine tasting, be it alcoholism, be it eating too much, be it sea swimming, be it running, be it whatever. It's like it genuinely is. It's interesting to see how people have taken up different things and sort of got into different things. Like Ray, you say the sea swimming thing, but you're not just the only one in Ireland. It's been an absolute boom over the last 12 months. It's like it's turned huge because again, it's one of those simple things. You just need a pair of jocks, a towel, and away you go off down the beach, no matter what time of year it is. Ray Dicko, yourself, you have a bike there in the background. You're obviously planning to fly the Tour de France there with that bike. So it's any new hobbies, new sports that you've found yourself being attracted to while this shitstorm goes on?
I do plan to get on the bike at some point over the next few weeks. The weather's perking up, but no, it's funny you mentioned the American football. That'd probably be my second kind of favorite sport, and I didn't find the viewing experience too different this season, to be honest with you. I mean, at the end of the day, Red Zone was Red Zone. Like that's how we consume, generally speaking, that's how we consume the NFL now from the UK. And okay, I've been to some games occasionally, but to be honest with you, that's my experience, and I enjoyed it just as much as I've done in previous seasons. The one that I didn't really get into so much was the college football. That really does for me need all of the fans in the stadium, like seeing those college games with 100,000 plus. Just blows my mind, and the atmosphere as a result of that. And the games just seem to have mad momentum swings, which generally involve the crowd really start to get into the game and kind of having an impact. And just seeing that the TV panning to those crowds going mad. That really sort of that turned me away from the college football season this season. I did find myself more engaged in some of the games, particularly the last week or so, where the internationals in certain countries did allow Did allow fans in the stadium. I'm really looking forward to the fact, even a few thousand fans, I think makes a huge difference. I've watched some games in, Saturday mornings. You'll sometimes catch an A-League or game in Australia, and obviously they've got fans in the ground, and I do think it helps massively by having a few fans. And the other thing that I might find myself getting into, because I know their seasons are due to start, if not this weekend, maybe it was last weekend, is the Australian NRL, the rugby league over there, and the AFL, and they'll have crowds. They'll be better experiences, I would imagine. And because I lived in Australia for a few years, I did tend to watch them when I was living there, because you were on the right time zone while you were living there. So it just became more a pattern to start watching those sports. So definitely watching a few more different sports, but it is based around crowds, because I am, like some of the lads are saying there, like I'm fed up with watching empty stadiums. It's just such a, and I don't put the fake crowd noise on anymore. I prefer to wear the players, to be honest with you.
That comment
so no, I'm looking forward to fans back in the stadium. I know that's my topic in a little while, but I'm completely fed up with empty stadiums.
Okay,
actually,
right. It's go on. Sorry, Andy, I was going
to get to, I like watching the American football when it comes close to the Super Bowl, but when I seen Ray actually celebrate a touchdown or fucking try or whatever you call it.
What did he do? What did he do, Andy?
Oh, like proper, like Liverpool have scored a winner, like in the
No way.
Yeah. Like,
yes, get in.
Proper, like
Proper.
touchdown. mega shit, like, fucking, and even like you have all the
beauty.
Yeah, no, he has the lingo, like that's it. That right for the end zone. I mean, it actually was an eye opener seeing that for the first time, and then actually going to those bars that show the American football as well, where it's a wall to wall, like rays, all giving it socks in their jerseys and chicken wings all over their faces. You could actually be tempted by getting dragged into it, like, because there is fans of some of those games.
Yeah. I have to say, to be fair, like I adore the American football. But even that, as a viewing experience, there was no combine this year. That's been ruined, so you're just left looking at pro days, and the draft is coming up. But thankfully, there'll be people at the draft just to shout randomly. You see, the one thing about American sport is that the fans are insane. So it's just great that they just shout random stuff, like yourself, Andy, as you're saying from the golf, like mashed potato and stuff. Yeah, fight and win. Fight.
Yeah, right, Andy.
Referee's wanker. Referee's wanker. Referee's wanker. Referee's
The big cheese hat on.
Yeah.
Big cheese. The cheese heads are all the Green Bay fans.
And win.
See, who doesn't love American sport? But but watching like the basketball and stuff, it's still shite without the fans. Like everything's shite without fans. And to be fair, right, that I know that this is your topic. You wanted to talk when Gav's saying it, Gav, you're not going to talk about this again. But I think it's relevant, and I think it's becoming more relevant as we start seeing fans in some sports and no fans in other sports, and fans in some countries and not in other countries.
Sorry, Owen, we are going to discuss that, and everybody else that's asking, there's loads of people asking, are we going to discuss Konate? And yes, we are.
Absolutely, yeah.
Well, first I want to lead on from that. So it also arises out of a report that came out today, which they're expecting to get fans. They're going to try bringing big crowds back into stadiums on April 17th and 18th in England for the FA Cup semis, I think it is. So, Ray, take it away. Your topic. What do you want to say?
No, I haven't watched games in the last week or so with fans in the crowd. It hit home that it's been missing for too long now, and that really you know, the sooner we get fans back in the stadium, the better, really, for everyone. And I think we'll have a massive, lift. Obviously, it's going to come too late, I think, obviously, in the season to salvage, all the points that we dropped. And I'm adamant that we wouldn't have dropped. We wouldn't have had those successive home defeats with crowds. There's no way that record would have, well, it may have been broken by one game. Let's face it.
Yeah.
You take your hats off to City, but some of the other muck that we've lost to this season in this run of home games is an absolute joke, really.
I told you I'm not counting them as home losses anyway.
And I'm with you 100%. I'm with you 100%. So yeah, I mean, I know the talk is for the fans to be in the game, for the last home game of the season. Which is a shame in some ways, because I think we'll probably be just doing the usual lappy clappy honour sort of thing, clapping the players and the families on the pitch when we finish 6th or 7th. Like
lappy clappy honour.
I mean, that's what I've become used to.
That's what we've all grown up on. Exactly. Them just walking around the pitch with their families and looking forward to seeing what their wife was wearing and what the kids might have on. Which kid hates their dad as a footballer and prefers someone else on the team.
Glenn Johnson falling out with the fans that are up
for the kids and all that sort of stuff. I mean, that's been us for 30 years basically, and we were obviously bleeding robbed of the opportunity to have a different type of season end. I mean, we couldn't even. I remember thinking, like, when we fell short, and we obviously go on to win the Champions League the following week. You kind of wanted to celebrate with the players there that we were about to win a Champions League, but you couldn't even, give yourself that kind of aspect because you couldn't take it for granted that we were going to go and do it the following week in Madrid, sort of thing. So, no, I mean, I think, I know listening to other podcasts and whatnot, like, it's having a profound impact on a lot of people's, kind of mental health. People who would normally go to the games, and it's a massive part of their weekly routines, and I think all round it's going to be a massive lift, not just for us, but I think for the fans in general. And it's going to be interesting because the club have already given the option, or they've announced that they're giving an option for fans to take a season off, a season holiday, a season ticket holiday for next season. So, hopefully, depending on what the fan capacity is, I'd imagine there'll be a good few who'll take that option. And maybe there'll be a little bit more ticket availability knocking around for general fans and for general sale. But it's no doubt it's going to be a hot sort of ticket next season to try and get into Anfield. And like, I can't wait, to be able to get back into Anfield at some point next season, and just get that connection back, because I really have missed it this season. It's been a massive miss out of my life, and I just want to get back in there and show, even though in some ways going to be hollow, just show the appreciation for the lads having won that league, because we won't forget that they actually did it for us ultimately, you know what I mean?
What sort of time frame are they talking about before it's full capacity?
They're talking about May 17th. The last games of the season, they were planning on having full capacities in the stadiums.
Oh, I don't think so. No.
Half
10,000 or half, whichever was the least.
You wait and see now. Boris, big thumbs up. Get them all in for the Euros. He'll try lash as many people as he possibly can into the stadium.
Realistically, Ray, you were talking about next season and the season tickets. Look, maybe the clubs now more than we do, obviously, but I would have thought that this time next year we would definitely have a full ground.
I get the feeling from the communication that come out that they'd be confident of allowing everyone to renew the season ticket for next season, and they'd be able to go to the games. That suggests to me that they're probably confident of being allowed half a capacity, based on the number of season ticket holders and the general capacity of the total capacity of the ground. So they're probably assuming a certain percentage of people taking the one season holiday. But still, I think I'd be saying half capacity when we kick off in August. Sure.
Do you think there's a bigger thing at play there, giving people the opportunity to have a season off? Do you think there's something else going on there, like something like?
It could be. They could well be looking at, people, if they, people who may just decide not to go back, not to renew, and giving people the opportunity to take a year just to let that kind of continue to mull over that possibility that they don't actually want to go back full time again, because I think people's habits and people's priorities may well have changed over the last 12 months, and it's probably given some people an opportunity to maybe consider whether they want to continue with the season tickets. So maybe that comes into it.
It's all a horrible mess, though, isn't it? Like, let's say even if they do have they even spoke about how they do it with the half capacity, for example, that you have your set seats with your season ticket. How is it decided? You're 1 week on, the fella next door is 1 week on, 1 week off. It's an absolute nest. Then there's celebrations, so you're not allowed to hug and put your mate in a headlock and grab the steward by the arse and fall down the steps when you celebrate a goal. All this, it's like how much longer do we have to put up with this pissy watered down version? It's terrible. I think the whole thing, I was just listening to you there, Ray, talking about us winning the league, and it will seem, to try celebrate something so long after the event is going to be tough, right? And it just seems like, I'm saying, for fuck's sake, so they're going to let people in the ground now for City win the league. Yeah, there we were 30 years waiting and we couldn't get fucking one. Like, seriously, piss the fuck off. Who's deciding this shit against us? Like, seriously,
football,
like,
yeah.
Well, look, I pricked that made Gerrard slip.
But right, Dick, do you not think it's going to be a requirement that to get into a stadium, you're going to have to show that you've had at least your first shot of your vaccine?
Quite possibly, yeah. It's look, the UK vaccination program is well and truly sort of in full swing. I mean, they're talking about over 40s maybe in another 3 weeks getting kind of the open invitation. So by the time, given that most of the season ticket holders, I'd say that, they will know the age profile of the season ticket holders, still probably an amazing amount of over 120.
There's a lot of people with season tickets that are nearly 200 years old, right?
So if you take the over 120s out the equation, they probably know exactly how many real people are going to come in.
Chewbacca and Yoda,
yeah. I can't imagine there's many under 30s who are season ticket holders, to be honest with you. So most of the season ticket population, I'm sure, will have had the first shot by August time, unless they live in another country like a few other unfortunate sods that we won't mention.
So like what Phil's saying though, so for the general sale then outside the season tickets, then are we saying it will only be season tickets because they can have some sort of traceability with the people who own them tickets in regards to tests and proving that they've had the vaccine? Like, what are you talking, flashing a passport that you've had your test as you're going in and scanning your ticket on the way in the gate?
I think Ray, even to get into most European countries come July time, there's going to be some type of worldwide vaccine style passport, at least in the Western based countries, right? Because it's the easiest way to get travel back up and running. Without it, you won't get travel back up and running. And on that basis, it's going to be carried on your devices or something like that you can scan. And the club will be able to read the barcode readers the same way as they can do it with tickets and stuff like that. And if you don't have it, you're not getting through the gates. And to be fair,
they've already started that process. Everyone who went into the stadium, the 6,000 people, 2,000 per game for the 3 games, were only able to gain access through the mobile phones as their ticket. So the cards to me are kind of redundant now. I would imagine that they've made the leap to that technology. They were talking about it for years. There was always Yeah, there was always barriers to do it. A lot of, you know, fan groups, and you know, they were a little bit scared of upsetting people, but they've grasped it now. The technology's been there for a while. They got the opportunity. They've made the leap. They're on the new platform. You're probably just going to be made to upload, you know, scan, just like season ticket holders were made to scan copy of their ID, passport, driving license, whatever. They're going to probably ask people to scan a copy of their evidence of the vaccine, link that to their account, and that will give someone the green light to be able to enter the stadium. So it you know, you probably will. I would imagine you may well need to have at the very least a membership, you know, a valid membership card, so that there's track and traceability of fans going in and out the ground.
I have to say, like, I think it's from a wider society perspective. If you don't get a vaccine, you can't expect to return to normal. Like, in my head, it's like it's caused too much deaths and breaking up of normal life for people. And if you're not prepared to have a vaccine, that's fine, but you're not entitled to the freedoms that you can associate with normal life on that basis. And if you get a vaccine, then you should be entitled to have the freedoms that you had prior to this all starting, so that you can get back out, you can go to crowds, and Ray, you can do exactly, Ray B, you can do exactly what you want. If everyone in the crowd has a vaccine and somebody jumps up and wants to celebrate a goal, and if you want to give an old squeeze to the steward's arse, you'd be more than entitled to do it. Right.
I'm partial to that now, I have to say.
Once the steward is also reciprocal in terms of that he's allowed to do. So I just, look, for me, it's fine. I have no issue with it. That's if you want to go to the games. There's nobody's forcing you to go to the games. There's nobody forcing you to do anything. Nobody's saying you should do it. But I think you got to expect that you have to go and do something if you want to get back to some form of normality, because otherwise it's not going to happen.
I've a mate there who's complaining that the UK are rushing their way back to normal ahead of Ireland, and I says, well, that's because they're getting vaccinated, but he's refusing a vaccine. Mm-hmm. So how can you have it both ways? I mean, look, fair enough if clubs are like, you know, concerts, and one of the stipulations is that they have to make it a safe space for everybody that's there. Says you have to be vaccinated. Why is there this thing where people are somehow trying to say that it's infringing on their rights? Mm-hmm. Like there has to be rules around these things. It's not like it's not like pretend. There actually has
people just like giving out, don't they, Andy? That's the bottom line. Yeah. People just like fucking giving out.
The other bit is, Andy, people have this mad concept that their lives are actually important to governments. Like, let's be honest about it. There's about 1% of people whose actions actually matter, and the other 99% are irrelevant. Like, anyone that's moaning about government tracking them and controlling them while on a YouTube channel, right, on their devices, you might want to think about what you're doing there. It's because if it's really affecting you, you should be up the mountain living in a wooden hut with no access to technology whatsoever, and a tinfoil hat, because the tinfoil hat is so important to put on top of your head. That's the most important.
It's bizarre. Like, one thing that COVID has done is exposed extreme amount of stupidity around the world, because it's a real leveler. I mean, nobody was entitled to know anything about what the effects of a pandemic or a virus beforehand, but everybody got the chance at the exact same time to start learning and developing an understanding for it. And it's amazing how far apart some people are in their understanding at this point. Over a year into this, that it's incredible that there's still people denying that it even exists, that it's engineered, all the conspiracies, and even down to the level of people's just their head in the sand, ignoring the reality.
Well, and the social media is mental, and it can push you down one particular. You start going down one side of the fence, and everything else is linked to that. You've already the cookies being there on that particular path will drive you there, whether it's Facebook, Instagram, you name it. Yeah.
But Ray, there's a part of the world that people refuse to grasp, which is around that cookies and data, and understand that the data is the new dollar signs, right? Mm-hmm. They want that because they're able to listen to what you want. But it's to sell you stuff, right? It's to sell you what you're talking about. It's to sell you what they're doing. The whole thing is about making money. If people think that this is about controlling your lives and controlling what's going on, they're mad. Because to try control 9 billion people in the world is the most insane thing ever, because we can't control ourselves. How do you think somebody's going to control you? Like, there is no such thing as God. There's no such thing as magic people who can control you. They may as well be talking about the lizard aliens who control us from the moon base, who have had put their representatives on Earth, like your man Zuckerberg off Facebook, because he's the closest thing you're going to get to a lizard king, right? Because look at his head. He's the same colour. And on talk about social media and Facebook likes and everything else, right? I'm going to ask you a question. Konate, biggest rumor that was associated today, Ray, and this is your Razor Brady. This is your topic here. The links to Ibrahima Konate, the as somebody thought today, the right back Leipzig player. Straight away, too much FIFA for them. Right back. So yeah, Ray, how were you feeling when you saw the rumors break today? Did you get a tingle of excitement, or are you just wondering what's going on?
Oh, well, I'm going to be honest, extremely honest, and I'm not one for watching fucking foreign leagues too often and saying that I watched 94 games in the Bundesliga and the French league and this, that, and the other. So I seen the guy playing against us, and I was well impressed with him. So you see yourself getting linked with a centre half, which we're fucking crying out for. So yeah, as soon as I seen it, and then obviously the price is seems ridiculous. His buyout clause, from what I read, £33 million or €38 million. For and even an average player at that type of money is cheap in today's markets. So yeah, overly impressed. And then obviously as usual, they give it and they take it away. The next thing that I seen on social media was his injury list. So you know, they're going, yeah, it looks like we're making a move here. We're getting things signed up and getting things sorted early in the. You know, and all of a sudden then his injury stuff comes up. And then I read into it a bit more, and the injuries that you were seeing, obviously they were almost shock and awe tactics. You were getting quoted the amount of games he was out, and half of that was while he was on the summer holidays over in Cartown. So, you know, yeah, well impressed. I mean, what we thinking? It's a young right-sided centre back who looked decent when I seen him playing. So yeah, I'm happy.
Playing against us.
You're not looking at the
different match. You're looking at Upper
Yeah,
Meccano.
no, I wasn't looking at you. No,
you fucking were. I thought he played against us.
Konate didn't play against us. No, come on. Ray Brady, Konate didn't play against us.
That's what I said.
Ray Dicko.
That fella that wasn't Konate was very good.
Yeah, that other fella that wasn't Konate. That's what I said.
Yeah.
Ray Dicko, after that, great insight there from Ray Brady, because he's been following for years.
It's opposite end of the scale, isn't it, to the Vinny Fair conversation last week? You know, it's Vinny knew his onions, raises, make it as he goes along.
Yeah, of course.
Am I
alone? I should just.
I'm gonna carry on in that same theme, Razor. So I'm only slagging you just before I'm about to continue on that theme. Look, why didn't he play against us? By the way, was he injured?
He doesn't get his game.
Doesn't get his game.
He didn't pay his subs. He's played 9 games this year.
Okay.
And he played 8 games last year.
Okay. It's not promising. He doesn't
Nobody's
score.
Let's face it, nobody's seen him play. Not even he's seen himself play.
I mean, look, he does fit the mold, doesn't he? He fits the kind of the model that we a system with. You know, he's 21 years of age, and he obviously he'll have a certain ceiling that they would imagine, you know, would allow potentially them to at least recoup the outlay, if not more, in the future. So, like, with those boxes ticked, I suppose, you know, it's something that we got to accept is an approach that they're going to take. I don't know. I mean, Kabak for me, you know, he's still. So I know there was, when we spoke last week, you know, there seemed to be 2 for and 2 against on that particular podcast. So maybe a 50-50 split. I still think Kabak's worth signing and would be a good addition to the depth of the centre backs that we've got. I don't know, where do we see this fella slot in? Do we see him being that natural, maybe sort of number 2 centre back? I don't know. I guess if we do sign him, he's probably in a fight for the second spot alongside Gomez, and then maybe you've got Kabak as your number 4. And I don't know, does that mean Matip leaves? Do we keep Nat Phillips hanging around? Look, I mean, we need to sign. So I'd say if we do sign this fella and Kabak, that will probably be it. I don't see us signing anymore. I like the timing of it. If we're going to sign someone, I'd rather get the business done early and not be, especially in a kind of a summer where there's going to be tournament football, and sometimes you get suckered into paying too much for someone who kind of flatters to deceive. So Kev O'Sullivan's saying, watch the fair bit of him, he's the real deal.
Can I just say,
anyone watch them together?
Right, anyone who's watched the Champions League this season and watched the Leipzig games in the Champions League this season has probably watched about as much as you're going to watch if you watch them in the Bundesliga, because he played all 6 group games in the Champions League and only 9 games in the Bundesliga for a whole season. The fella, but
Phil,
yes, Andy,
how do you unblock someone on there? On this thing,
Chris, did you?
Yeah,
that's a bit harsh.
I didn't mean to. I meant to block someone else, and it wasn't him, and I just blocked him.
I don't know.
Chris, if you can log into StreamYard and unblock yourself, be great.
It'd be grand.
You haven't mentioned. So what we thinking? What's like? I mean, were we all expecting after the injury crisis that we were going to go all balls out and buy some top of the range centre back? Are we disappointed? We're looking down this end of the thing. Is it another FSG sort of money ball? Like Dicko's first comment there was about his possible sell-on value if things don't work out, and that's the way we seem to approach signings. Is that the right way? Is it?
The point I made to you this morning was, right, so we signed Keita and he's only missed 7 games or 11 games over 3 seasons with Leipzig, right? And he's only played 11 games in 6 seasons since he signed for us, right? We signed Tsimikas, and he'd never been out with an injury ever in Greece. And he hasn't played a game or been fit for a game since he signed for us. There's no guarantee that when you sign a fella, right, that he is going to be fit all the time. Nor is there a guarantee that if a guy had picked up a few injuries beforehand, that he's not going to be fit for you when he comes in. I think I'd back the horse that's, has 4 legs. Yeah, of course you would. But at the same time, if you're going to sign an injury-prone centre-back, you're going to have to get rid of one of the injury-prone centre-backs that you have. So that means that one of Matip or Gomez has to go. Okay? One of Matip or Gomez has to go in this instance, because both of them are prone to long-term injuries, right? So then you've also got, you're taking Kabak, who's a 20-year-old, and you're taking Konate, who's a 20-year-old, right? I would probably, and I thought we'd sign Kabak, but if we sign Konate, for me, I'd say that means that they're not going to go through with the Kabak deal, because that's 18 million sterling, 20-odd million euro. The difference between the two is quite small in real terms. So are we going to sign? I don't know. But it's interesting that the Leipzig sporting director came out this evening with this quote. He said he's a long contract with us and he knows what we mean to him and what it means to us. He was unlucky last year as he had a longer injury, but this year he's in a good way and he's an extremely important player. We want to help him to further develop, and we play internationally, have a very good team, so I don't see a reason for him to leave us. It doesn't say that they're not going to let him leave, because clearly there is a release clause there that can be activated, and if it's activated, they can do nothing about it, right? I think the bigger one on this is that I can't see us at some point not having some formal link up with Red Bull. If I go past this transfer, yeah, you've had Keita, we've had Minamino. There seems to be constant links between ourselves and either Leipzig or Salzburg players. The Red Bull brand itself would lend to the Red Bull Anfield Road end, the Red Bull main stand, gives you wings. Gives you trusses. But I can't see how at some point, given that these the new fellas that have come into FSG, what are they called? Red Capital, Red Ball, Red.
There's a big red air mascot.
Big Red is their mascot, right?
Big red bull. There, right there. I'm gonna copyright that. Big red bull.
We wear red.
Yeah, red Cardinal, Redly Deadly, and
I'll talk. That's a done deal.
Yeah, so to me, I think the bigger logic part of this is that, like, if we had a former
wear boots,
who Konate,
yeah,
he doesn't wear any boots, mate. He doesn't play. He's injured all the time. He wears
slippers. He wears.
You've given me a good idea, actually, about naming a stand. I think we need to rename the Anfield Road the COVID end, and let all the lads who refuse to get vaccinated go in the Annie Rose. Call it the COVID
with the away fans.
Yeah.
Could you vaccinate them as they're going in? Just like, babe. But come here, he wears Nike boots, Andy, just to confirm. He is a Nike athlete, so he does. And to be fair, Red Bull, whatever they're called, Red Bull Leipzig, Red Bull Salzburg, Red Bull Formula One, they are also wearing Nike gear. So you can see the whole thing's lining up, that it's all there. It's the investment. You have Red Board, Red Bull, Red or Dead, Konate. And we could then send lads back to them. We could send Firmino to them and ask them, would they swap for the Patson Daka fella? And we could use them as a breeding ground for what we need player-wise.
Isn't it just
here? Look, it's what like Dicko was here saying. Like, I can't deal with that. I can't not think of Virgil not coming back to be the beast he was. I can't let that into my head.
Until the assault by Pickford, I mean, his injury record was impeccable. I mean, we all used to wince when he went down with a little knock on the ankle or something. And he used to just bounce back up when he used to win it off within a few minutes. Klopp
played him in every single game, even games where you normally know Klopp doesn't give a bollocks about. He played Virgil in it.
His durability was incredible. It really was.
Given that he has to have the AC, would you think it would be a good idea to sell him this year because we get loads of money from him?
Fuck off, Phil. And Andy, I want to go back in. Andy said ages ago that he thought Gomez was knackered. Do you still thinking that?
I do.
Yeah, I honestly, I can't imagine Liverpool hanging on to Matip and Gomez. Like, I love them both, and it's such great ambition and like I thought Gomez was going to be like him and Virgil for a long time. But what happened to him? It was like it wasn't an impact. His knee just fell apart. I just can't see there ever being a situation where Gomez plays non-stop for years. Without an injury. He's had such bad injuries to this point. But look, getting back to Konate, like I haven't went looking at what his injuries were, because
I have a document here, a dossier.
But I'll tell you why. Number one, we're just being linked to him by a lot of journalists, and the other reason is the medical staff and the players that are the people in the club that are paid massive money don't just look at Wikipedia when they're doing a medical on someone. They look at the cause of injury, and if they give that the go ahead, that's good enough for me. So I'm not going to worry too much about his injury record. I just look on paper, it just doesn't look like the type of player that Liverpool are going to go after, especially given the fact that they've Gomez, Matip, and they've just spent the whole season with one recognised senior centre back, and a lot of the season without even one of them. So I don't know. Do
you have a preferential pick for the centre half? All three is if he's got a pick, if someone says, right, go get someone now to partner Virgil, who would you get?
I'd break the bank to sign Varane off Madrid. He's coming he's got a year left on his deal, and he said let's get him. Let's get him.
I don't think he would agree.
What?
I don't think Shane would be on that one.
Wow.
I don't really care.
Andy, you? Anyone?
No, honestly, I never really get involved in trying to think about who'd be good first and who wouldn't be good first.
I remember Dicko. What about you? We remember being impressed with your man Shores off Ajax. I don't know. I heard he had like an 80 million buyout or something. I don't know how he's been doing since, but he was someone I like.
He hasn't been getting his game either, has
There
he?
we go.
He scored a goal.
So, there we go. Shows you what I know.
Under 21s, was it? Did he score a goal for the under 21s the other night for Holland?
Right.
No, I mean I'm like Andy. I prefer to just see what comes along. What I would say is most of the fellas who we do get tend to get linked with. Whenever I see them, I'm very, very rarely impressed, to be honest with you. You know, the Varans, the Upamecano's. You know, there's who's the fella for Napoli who we've been linked with on occasion.
Valley. He's 20. I just don't see it right. I keep coming back to age as well. If you look at the age profile of this team, it's getting older. And the one thing that FSG like to do and Edwards likes to do is to have relatively players on the younger side of 27 as opposed to on the older side of 27. If you look at Van Dijk, he's 29. He's going to be turning 30 next season, right? You look at Matip. That's why I believe Matip will be the one to go. They'll still think there's residual value in Gomez because that they know a West Ham or a Burnley or a Bournemouth will pay 50 million for him if he comes available. Like, do you know what I mean? So Newcastle
walks like a slug.
They will, because they will. Because like, think if David Moyes would have an aneurysm if he thought he could get hold of Joe Gomez at this stage.
Don't get me wrong. I think they'll get him going again. I think he will.
Who there was, you know, we were kind of linked with, and there was a lot of chatter about in the summer, and I've now got to see because he's playing in the Premier League is Ben White. I mean, I think he looks half decent. He looks like a player who's got you know, some upside, and he's young, but because he is young and he is English, you're gonna be looking at paying a premium. So I don't know if that's necessarily going to be something that we'd really sort of pursue. But he's, you know, I think he's looked fairly decent. But no, there's no one. There's no one high up there. I'd be really intrigued as to what the club would be tempted by in terms of if someone come knocking on the door with a figure for the likes of Joe Gomez. After all, you know, if someone was willing to put 40 million on the table or whatever, like would we? Do you know
who I think would pay us stupid money for Joe Gomez? Arsenal.
Potentially, yeah.
They're the type of team who are looking to try to force their way back into the Champions League equation, and will be prepared to take a gamble on his fitness, because if they could get 20 to 25 games out of a season, they would see that as an upgrade on what they have there.
I mean, would Leicester? I mean, Johnny Evans is still getting his game. How much longer can he? You know what I mean? But they, you know,
this fella Konate, Shawnee is talking about him a fair bit as well. That they're mad about this Konate fella. So it'll be interesting to see if he turns out to be.
Konate Carr as well. That seems to be the one there. Apparently there was interest in him. There was even a bid, like, you know, all the relevance were informed in January, but I don't know.
Briefed.
It always amazes me though that you've never heard this name before. And suddenly everybody seems to know about them. Like, why aren't we all talking about this before the name gets leaked by a journalist? You know what I mean? Don't pretend you know this player.
Do you not think there's an argument that we do need to clear out the centre backs because they are so horrifically injury prone. Like this isn't Gomez's first long-term injury. It's not Matip's first long-term injury since he signed for us, which is also contrary to Matip's injury profile before he signed for us, because he didn't have long-term injuries.
Phil, I said, like, I remember when we had Lovren as well, we'd Lovren, Gomez and Matip who could barely put 4 or 5 games together. You know, and I fully expected before any of these horrific injuries that were season enders, I fully expected that last summer, or at least the summer before, we'd probably see the back of Lovren and Matip, or Lovren and Gomez, or Gomez. You can't carry on like that. I mean, we can't claim to not have seen this coming. I mean, and we did go into the season with three senior centre backs, and everybody says it's okay.
Gamble. was a gamble.
It was a gamble, and it was a joint decision by the club. And some gambles pay off. Most of the club's gambles have paid off, but this one didn't pay off. I mean, even if those season enders didn't happen, we were still going to be without them for a huge partial season. We were still going to be with Thiago taking out, or Fabinho taking out that midfield and playing centre back. And look, don't get me wrong, Fabinho was excellent at centre back. He's able to play centre back just as well as he's able to play centre midfield. But our whole team just revolves around having Fabinho in that midfield, and the difference he makes to that midfield.
I heard there's a great centre back at Preston North End at the moment. He's meant to be an upgrade on Ben Davies.
He's better than Ben Davies. I mean,
Sepp Vandenberg. He's a pacey young centre back, is he? And he's been seen as an improved version of Ben Davies, pacey and quick and great to read the game.
Never injured.
Never injured.
Can I ask you, away from the piss take world that is Twitter and our WhatsApp group, like, should we have prioritised the centre midfielder ahead of a centre back in August? Did we need Thiago? If it was a choice between having Thiago and a centre back, a fit quality centre back, like, hindsight's a great thing. What's happened has happened, but we did know Gomez and Matip were sick notes.
Can I say to you that the real gamble that took place was, even if you weren't going to sign a top end centre back, the signing of Tsimikas made no sense on that basis. Because we needed a centre back. You could argue that you could sign a centre back and drop him in and play him as a full back, because Gomez has played at right back. We know that even when Lovren was there, he played full back previously. I'm sure you could have got Matip has filled in a full back position as well. You could have swapped Trent over to play left and played Nico Williams as right back if you had to get cover for Robertson. I thought signing a cover and left back was only sensible if you'd covered off your weaker position, which was when you let Lovren go, you needed to bring in another centre back to cover yourself. Now, Lovren wasn't the most robust centre back either, so it's not like you're talking about a fella who was going to be available for 40 games a season here. So we needed to get that centre back cover, and it was a big gamble. I thought it was a gamble not worth taking, particularly with the type of season it's going to be.
Well, in terms of before we got linked with Thiago, now that seemed to drag on for a long time. But if you had have asked people where were the positions we needed, and I actually do think left back was pretty high up on everybody's priorities, because we knew that Robertson just couldn't play every single game, and we knew that whatever was being brought in from previous to that was just not up to it. So
Milner wasn't.
And Milner doesn't want to play there, and everything else that goes with it. Like, Tsimikas just doesn't look to have paid off. He's been injured. He hasn't fit in or whatever. But I wouldn't argue with that. But when people got that taste for Thiago and how beautiful he looks in the midfield, like, people seemed to lose sight of what the real importance was, and that was going into the season with 4 fit senior centre backs. And I don't think Klopp ever really envisioned having to rely on Phillips or Williams. I don't think they were in his plans for the season at all.
No. I think
it's been a stroke of luck that Phillips has actually worked out.
Dave Lennon is screaming at striker needs. I think it's pretty clear that we do need another forward. We need somebody to replace Firmino in that front line, right? But the problem is, to replace Firmino in that front line, you're probably going to have to move something substantial to generate the money that you want to spend, or else you're going to have to be happy with a David Neres, a Patson Daka, that level of signing, which again is similar to the Konate signing. It's a young, up-and-coming, potentially world-class player, similar to when we signed Salah and Mane, and that seems to be where we're very good at purchasing players, right? So to me, like, you look at Joseph, we signed him, and like, nobody was expecting to see the turnaround in goal return that he's provided this season, even though he was missing for the best part of 3 months. Like, even for Portugal the other night, he's scoring. You know what I mean? So
he's part of, for me now, he's got himself as an established member of that front three. And, Firmino has dropped down the pecking order. He's 4th choice. Origi's 5th choice. He shouldn't really be getting too many minutes between now and the end of the season. You don't necessarily need to go out. Like, if you're going to keep those 3 intact, if you're going to keep Salah, Mane and Jota intact for next season, you don't necessarily have to bring in an automatic starter. You can bring someone in who is a fourth choice, who's going to come in on the rotation, who is going to be impactful from the bench, who maybe is a bit younger, has got a bit of pace, can do something different for the last 15, 20 minutes. Because when you bring Origi on, you know, it's pointless at this stage, isn't it? It really is. So
Yeah, no,
I'd be all for us taking a kind of, you know, I wouldn't necessarily use the word punt, but I'd certainly be willing for us to not be going out and spending like 80, 90 million on someone.
I mean, does any of us genuinely believe that we're even contemplating and slightly associated with the likes of Haaland or Mbappe? Like, I mean, I think that's not our thing. I know at the time, right, we splurged with Alisson and Van Dijk, but they were, you know, generational type.
Well, Phil, are you doing typing or something?
No.
Your microphone is banging.
I can hear it banging on it.
That's weird.
It is, Phil.
It's fucking Phil. Look at the swear.
Nothing to do with my mic.
All right.
It takes someone being sold, doesn't it? And Dicko saying only if Salah goes. If one of the big two go, then we may reinvest automatically on
Origi or
I still can't understand what you get. You know, if you do sell Firmino, what do you generate? I'm really struggling to understand some of these players who are kind of either often injured or they've just seemed to have fallen off a cliff running in treacle now. What are you actually going to get for these players? Like, I think, you know, because FSG's model is around, has, well, historically been around, at least getting some money back in the coffers to reinvest. I don't really see anyone outside of.
If you're just, I do agree, Dicko. I think if you're talking on this season alone, you're still talking. The Salah is the only one where you're talking actually mental money if he was to be sold. I think the way Mane and Firmino have fallen off now, their values dropped big time.
Like Mbappe is going to come into, he's going to go to a club and probably get paid about 600 grand a week.
Who's this?
Mbappe.
Yeah.
Sure, what's he on at the moment? 300 grand or 400 grand a week as it is?
Yeah, so I mean, City are clearing shop days. I just seen the tag bar that Aguero's leaving City now, so you know, there's someone coming in there. And it ain't Danny Ings.
Yeah, and it's likely going to be Haaland. Because they'll pay whatever it takes to get Haaland in. Madrid aren't going to be in the market if somebody comes. If they go in with 100 million bid, Madrid's not going to be able to match it because they don't have the money. If they go in from Mbappe, nobody's going to match the money they're going to lash on the table either. So United are meant to be in the shit at the moment because of the wages they're paying their players. So they don't have a massive amount of money to go because they splashed out last summer to get the players in that they brought in. They don't have, they have a goalkeeper, a backup goalkeeper on 150 grand a week, and they have another goalkeeper that's on 200 grand a week who's not even in the squad. Like, all I'm saying, like, for me, I come back to our model. Our model is not to buy these world superstars. Our model is to produce these world superstars that see Liverpool.
At the same time, Phil, would you say that we do need to spend big this summer? Now, that's without spending big on one particular player, but they do need to spend on a few players in a few different positions.
No, I think we just need to be. I think we just need to continue with our model.
Do you know what you mentioned earlier about the age thing, which also came into my head, right? Which is a factor. The lads are getting on. A lot of the team is getting on a little bit. You don't want everyone hitting over peaking at the same time. You have Genie leaving, so I mean, there's a few positions need looking at.
Yeah,
you know, if
Kevin Sullivan there, Sancho. I mean, there was a time where Sancho was kind of the fantasy signing, like, and now everyone's kind of talking about Mbappe. He'd be the big move, possibly this summer, or Haaland. Now Sancho's kind of under the radar. I mean, yeah. I think that's become very realistic for us, and not because. I mean, he's going to be still big money, but he sort of fits the profile. We fancied him for a long time, and
everyone's going mad on these Salah quotes. By the way, lads, well, we've been on. You've missed Salah's given an interview to Marca, and he said word for word. He said, "We'll see what happens, but I prefer not to talk about it now." And on his relationship with Klopp, it's a normal relationship between two professionals. That's how I describe it. Now that's going to get blown up into all sorts, right? Before the weekend is out. And I don't see Salah going this year. And if Salah was thinking to his head that I want to play in Spain, I think people need to cop on that it's basically a 5-year cycle with players these days, right? And if we have Salah and we win get to a Champions League, win a league, and potentially win a trophy next year with him there, I think as a 5-year return, that's immense from a player. It's the same as the Mane return. When I think of Mane, I think immense return. When you think of Genie leaving, I'm wishing Genie no malice at all leaving. I'm wishing him all the best because he's brought immense from us. Right? He's brought immense times to us. That's what we get from players these days. And you get probably 5-year windows with these players. And if Salah does go, we're going to have to find an absolute blindy to replace him because this is a fella who's guaranteed us 20 plus goals a season.
But they're out there, Phil. They're out, these players that we think they're not out there. We always think that Suarez was irreplaceable. King is irreplaceable. Everyone's fucking replaceable. This
time last season, we would have said Timo Werner is the type of player that you replace Salah with. And look how he's done when he gets into the league.
We've seen this before, though. Just because he's shite at Chelsea doesn't mean he'd be shite at somewhere else. I mean,
I'm not saying that, but it's very hard to replace one player in a team immediately. When you think it took us about 5 years.
Without thinking immediately, but I've just, a few years back, I just made my mind up that I wasn't getting attached to any players because we've been there 100 times thinking that, such and such, well, what we did, we'd be fucked if he left and we'd be fucked. There's always someone else. Someone else is going to be the best centre-half in the world when Van Dijk steps down. Someone else is going to be the best goalkeeper in the world. Someone else is going to be the best winger. There's always something else coming along. So if these fellas don't want to be at the club, fuck them.
If Salah does go, I think Liverpool change their kind of setup and they go for a player through the middle who is going to score more goals. I think if Salah was to go, you're looking at the end of Bobby there as well completely. That you might go and get Sancho and you might go and get a striker. I just don't think Haaland is realistic at all. But you go looking for a striker who's got more goals and he's not. We stop playing the kind of false nine role. And you look at more of a, like, whatever, 4-2-3-1.
Well, let's face it, we don't really know what it'd be like with. You imagine what it might be like actually just having a striker. We've always sort of used that thing of Bobby's work rate and what he's doing, but we don't know how good the air front three could have been had we an out and out like machine in front of goal as well.
I think
these names that are being like Rafinha, I think is a realistic, like that's the mold of a player that is not going to be commanding 300 grand a week, which has to break the wage structure. Is going to be able to come in at a reasonable transfer fee. Someone like Neto, maybe again another going back to kind of Wolves.
Neto, Neres. You've got also that guy, Kev O'Sullivan says Lautaro Martinez at Inter Milan as well, given that their owners have gone bust and there will be a fire sale at Inter Milan at the end of this season unless they find a new owner. There's lots of options out there, but again, we find the players, turn them into world class, and then we're looking to do essentially what Arsenal did under Arsene Wenger's glory years, which was to find these gems, polish them up, and then lash them out for stupid money, and then replace them with gems again. And that's essentially what it is.
And why do we seem to have this habit of not trusting that sort of system that's been so proven? Especially,
but you're right. I mean, like there's not worse than going out and splashing cash on someone who's supposed to be the finished product, and turns out that they're actually not. You know what I mean? So there's actually there's been a certain amount of it. Increased enjoyment over the fact that we've gone out there and we've managed to grab these players who people, opposing fans initially, Salah being a classic example, were sort of slagging us off for going out and buying this fella who flopped badly at Chelsea, and lo and behold, you turn him into this one, the next kind of globe.
It's been ridiculous. If we all took a step back, right, and took our red goggles off, even just to look at it now. I know opposition fans would like to say it, but I mean to look at Trent coming through, to look at Andy Robertson for £8 million, to look at Fabinho, who was talked about, but not at the levels of where he is now, best AM of the world. From Salah, 30-odd million, like you say, as a flop at Chelsea. Mane looked half decent, just a pacey fella from Southampton. Didn't look at him, but it's even
Deeney,
amazing.
Genie has used Classy's being part of that engine room for seasons now. Seasons that produce trophies, and we got him. What did we pay for 25 million or something? From
it's like you look at that. You look at that Sander Berge name. You look at the Harvey Barneses. You look at all these players that potentially. I didn't know your man Konate played for Villa, and if you're watching the Villa matches, there's something wrong with you. Anyway, Andy,
these are players that are on the cusp. These are players that are waiting to come in.
But that wasn't
big step
come
up.
here. That wasn't an invitation to talk because there's 30 seconds left. All I wanted to say, I wanted to thank Ray Brady, Ray Dicko, and Andy over there. That's been the forum. Thanks for everyone for watching, particularly for Andy Cheese for keeping me completely amused as we went along and nearly pissed myself about 3 times at the various things that came out. More shows on during the week. It is a Poxy International break, but we'll see you all back this time next week. Good night. God bless.